over half of the metal in the COMEX registered stockpile has come out since last February during that historic silver squeeze weekend. Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And in today's video, we're digging into the silver market and a recent development that happened on the COMEX, where, as you can see from John Adams, mentioned that in the last 2 trading days alone, 7.5 million troy ounces have been removed from the registered category, which certainly is a rather sizable amount. Actually, in an interview scheduled with Ronan Manley, where I was on his show this morning, and he was asking about how you have over half of the metal in the COMEX registered stockpile has come out since last February during that historic silver squeeze weekend, which you can see right here. And then it's drained out rather consistently since then, a bit of a jump here, but then you see with this last dip, small on that chart, yet 72 million ounces remaining. And here there was over 150 million at silver squeeze. So certainly to see over half of it come out, a significant development. Although if you do take the chart back a little further, you can see a lot of that came out had been recently added going back to July of 2020 when JP Morgan deposited 30 million ounces. You did see the price of silver go from about 18 to almost 30 around that time. And then you see it touched up at 30 again on silver squeeze weekend, has come out since then. Still higher than at many periods of time, at least going back the last 20 years. Although interesting to see that here in 2008, right around when silver was falling from $21, that you see a lot of metal coming out. This is when there was a shortage of metal as silver fell from $21 to $9 in 2008, amidst the Lehman crisis and other things. And then shortly thereafter, when it got low, you see the price spike. Again, in 2016, you see a low point here. And that was when the price did jump from 14 to 20 in the first half of 2016. So again, we'll see how that continues. Not historically low, but certainly when you see half of it come out since an event where the bank's own research confirmed that they had fears of running out of metal. I think they were referring more to London perhaps than the COMEX, but you saw a lot of chaos in between the silver supply. And again, 7.5 million ounces have come out. Here's a quick look at the transparent silver holdings. Think of this as SLV and the other ETFs. There is the historic silver squeeze weekend, that big spike there. I'll take this back on the long term for a moment, and you can see, aside from this one, which I'm not sure what that is, although that was before SLV was even invented. So that was really in the last 20 years. Here's the seeding of SLV, and then you see this spike here. So certainly quite large, perhaps one other time in history where we had something like that. And again, if you look back at the 2-year here, you see that, let's call that 1660, 1670-ish, and we're down to 1552. So a bit came out right away and then has continued to come out. LBMA did also confirm a couple months after that there was a miscount of roughly the amount that they claimed went in there. I have yet to get an answer on that. I've talked with some lawyers about this as well, and we're preparing a video about how that all went. So either case, metal coming out of the ETFs. Here is the London silver holding, and you can see that also, while the amount had been growing, has come down since that peak in February. Here is LBMA London Silver Holdings, similar pattern. There was that peak back in February. So metal coming out, and perhaps different than some other points in time, because now we have the sanctions on Russia that's basically cutting them and their resources off the globe, as well as 8% inflation prints, which could come down as the Fed is raising interest rates, but it's hard to see how they won't do so much damage in the process that they won't have to reverse that. And will be truly stunning to see what happens to the silver market in that environment. Here is a quick note from Rafi again, noting the 3 million ounces that came off. And also that silver is now out of backwardation after being backwardated for 3 weeks with spot prices over the nearest future. So, note from Rafi. We'll look forward to his silver report on Friday, as always. Here, coming from the World Silver Survey, global demand expected to continue upward trajectory, reports Silver Institute's World Survey. Global demand surged 19% to 1.05 billion ounces in 2021, hitting a 6-year high. And the survey said that demand for silver could reach a high of 1.12 billion ounces in 2022. So, at least the forecast from the groups that look at this closer than anyone else I know, and certainly matches the other data I've seen, projecting further increases. While also at the same time, you hear a lot of the mining projects are getting put on hold with the price just above the cost of production for some of the primary silver miners. Greg Liller of Sierra Madre was on here yesterday, and I thought it was interesting asking him, where is this metal coming from if the market is running a deficit? And he said that it must be coming from the investment supply, which we've seen it is, and demand expected to stay strong. So that's the supply and demand. Taking a look at some of the retail prices, here's Buffalo's. That's $27.09 if you're getting over 500. That's still a $5 premium to 22.10 spot price on Buffalo's. Here, look at the American Eagles, 36.09. That's on 1500. But look, if you're getting anywhere 1 to 499, 37.09 on 22.10. That's a $15 premium, which is 68%. And I think it's interesting because now you're seeing metal come off of the COMEX at the same time that a lot of supply is not available, as evidenced by these high premiums. What worked in May, oil comes out on top while metals got hit. We did talk about that recently, that both spiked as war escalated, although oil has rebounded, gold and silver not so much just yet. Note from John Adams, who again had pointed out the recent 2-day subtraction from the COMEX of metals, because he has a new article out, and I'll put the link to this in the description field below. But I'll mention that in this article where he was explaining what he thinks it would take to address manipulation of the silver market is through a bottoms-up approach, really getting at anything that actually backs contracts with supply, exposing some of these unallocated schemes and rehypothecation schemes. Ideally, what is required is exposure of a sizable fraud or rehypothecation scheme in the physical silver market to cause a sufficient number of market participants to trigger rush of redemptions, which would expose other schemes in the world. I'll put the link to that below. And again, it's good to have John researching these things as well, because there's a lot happening with silver. Similarly with gold, where Ronan Manley is writing about Czech Republic to join its allies in Central European gold rush, along with Germany and Austria, who have repatriated large quantities of gold, Poland, Hungary, Turkey also buying a lot of gold. And when you think about how Putin actually put a gold backing, whether it was temporary, we'll see what he does going forward, but he did just reinvoke gold into the monetary system. So it's not just conspiracy theory talk anymore. Ronan mentions here that Germany was one of the countries that repatriated their gold. And here you can see German inflation hit 60-year high, up to 8.7%. And from my experience in living in Europe, there is certainly an awareness of inflation in Germany. So again, you see that's not just in the US. Although speaking of the US, there was quite a spike in yields on Wednesday, yield going up to 2.91%. It's up about 7 basis points. They're already calculating to the next day here, but you can see yields came in after rising quite a bit over the past few months, although picking up a little bit. And certainly that is putting pressure on the stock market. And we'll see how the mortgage market responds to that as rates get higher. Quick note here, we also had some deal news this week. As you can see, there's a note here, Goldfields has acquired Yamana Gold. Transaction will create a top 4 global gold major. and it looks like they valued Yamana at $6.7 billion. So some activity on the deal side. Few last notes before we wrap up for today. Interesting story here by Somable, who's speculating on what the gold price could increase to. Although what I found particularly insightful was the US Congressional Budget Office had a projection of the average interest rate on federal debt, and they still only have it up at 2.7% by 2031, at 1.4% this year, steadily increasing. So I guess the Fed's plan is to never raise interest rates, and even the Congressional Budget Office is banking on lower interest rates here for eternity. It's going to take a lot of printed money to procure that, and the Fed will be coming your way in just 2 weeks. And one other piece of mining stock news, we did have First Majestic releasing some news yesterday, intersecting 8.39 grams per ton gold over 29.7 meters at their Jarrett Canyon project. Since acquiring the mine on April 30th, the company's completed 70,000 meters of drilling. The 2022 plan is for 135,000 meters of drilling. Company also pleased to announce the United States Forest Service has approved an exploration permit to conduct activities across 43,000 acres. And a quick look at the results here, you see at the Smith SSX mine, 8.39 grams per ton gold over 29.7 meters. At Winters Creek, 11.81 grams per ton gold over 13.7 meters. And at the Murray mine, 4.74 grams per ton gold over 12.2 meters. Link to the press release with the full details in the description field below. And one last note before we wrap up, Russia holds nuclear forces drill as Biden unveils 700 million more in arms for Ukraine, which require quite a lot of silver. And interestingly enough, if you'd like to hear a recent interview from Keith Newmeyer of aforementioned First Majestic Silver, where he talks about exactly how much silver is in that missile, well, that one's coming your way right now.